So before I introduce our guest presenters, I want to kind of lay the groundwork for the topic of today's class. And I'm going to do that by referencing the World Bank's 2011 World Development Report, which said, and I quote, "Insecurity not only means it has become not only remains, it has become a primary development challenge of our time. 1.5 billion people live in areas affected by fragility, conflict, or large-scale organized criminal violence, and no low-income, fragile, or conflict-affected country has yet to achieve a single Millennium Development Goal. New threats such as organized crime and trafficking, civil unrest due to the global economic shocks, terrorism, etc., have supplemented continued preoccupations with conventional war between and within countries. While much of the world has made rapid progress in reducing poverty in the past 60 years, areas characterized by repeated cycles of political and criminal violence are being left far behind, their economic growth compromised, and their human indicators stagnant." So peace may not necessarily come up in one of the 8 Millennium Development Goals, but as this World Development Report outlines, peace and conflict impact all of the Millennium Development Goals. And so we have 3 guest speakers, which I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy days to come and be with us. And so allow me to introduce them. First, we have Nick Martin. Nick Martin is the co-founder and president of Tech Change. As president, he oversees all strategy and programming for the organization. Nick is an educator, a technologist, and social entrepreneur with significant international peacebuilding and development expertise. He's an adjunct faculty member at American University, George Mason University, George Washington University, and the United Nations University for Peace, and has given a number of guest lectures and speeches on the role of technology in peacebuilding, development, and humanitarian work. Nick is the founder of 2 innovative and award-winning digital media and conflict transformation programs, DC Peace and Peace Rooms. In 2009, Nick was selected as a global fellow by the International Youth Foundation and as a Washington, D.C. Humanities Council Scholar for his leadership in launching the programs and his track record as a young social entrepreneur. He received his BA with honors from Swarthmore College and an MA in Peace Education from the United Nations mandated University for Peace. Thank you, Nick, for being here. Awesome. Christine Capoda is an educational technology enthusiast who specializes in educational media and research projects. Christine holds a master's in education from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where she focused on technology, innovation, and education. Her interests lie in educational technology, international development, and psychology. Prior to her graduate studies, Christine worked as a digital media analyst at Sesame Street Workshop, the nonprofit organization most known for its production of Sesame Street. At Sesame Street, she analyzed the usage of new digital media initiatives such as podcasts, websites, and mobile video clips. She was also involved in the production of several Latin America projects, including the introduction of Plaza Sésamo to mobile phones in the U.S. and Mexico. Christine holds a BA from McGill University in Montreal, where she focused on psychology and music. At McGill, she worked as a music cognition researcher for 3 years. Thank you, Christine, for joining us. And Saji, my good friend Saji, is Director of Children and Youth Programs at Search for Common Ground. Before that, he was Associate Director of the Peacebuilding and Development Institute here at American University and the Executive Director of the Center for Peacebuilding International. Mr. Perellis has over 15 years' experience working with youth in various conflict-affected environments. Some of the experiences include addressing alternatives to gang life in Los Angeles, working with street children from northern Uganda, and enhancing youth capacities in Nepal, to programming for marginalized and conflict-affected youth in Sri Lanka, assessing Thai-Burma border issues for youth, training in youth leadership in the Republic of Georgia and Abkhazia, and strengthening youth-led organizational capacity in Cambodia. The man has been all over the world. He has over 7 years of experience in designing conflict-sensitive training programs in the United States and country programs and projects in Southeast Asia, East and West Africa. Mr. Perellis has dedicated his academic and professional career to strengthening youth capacities for peace. and providing technical expertise in intergenerational peace building and conflict-sensitive development practice in conflict and disaster-affected settings. His more than 9 years of experience at American University have resulted in the development of curriculum programs in conflict and post-conflict areas targeting human rights, conflict resolution, and peace building. Outside of his work at the university, Mr. Perellis has served as an advisor to governments and governmental agencies from countries such as Nepal, Sudan, Sierra Leone, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Uganda, developing training programs, drafting policy frameworks, and designing community participation programs. He also has over 10 years experience working with donor and nonprofit organizations, including UNICEF and USAID, to focus on coordination, beneficiary accountability, conflict-sensitive humanitarian practice, conflict resolution, and peace building. Give it up for Saji. So my first question to our panelists is, you all have amazing backgrounds and experiences, and these are all undergrads, and some of them are interested in entering into this field. So my question to you is, what was one moment in your life that you felt sparked this interest in getting into the field of international development, peace building, or educational technology? Nick, can we begin with you?
Yeah, sure. So, so I majored in education as an undergrad, and I did a student teaching project in Philadelphia, taught in senior English. I was like 22, and the kids were like 18. I had a great time, but I think I really wanted to be more internationally oriented in my career choice. So I on a whim, found this university in Costa Rica that called the University for Peace. And I think it was like March 12th. The deadline was March 15th. So I scrambled, I put together my application, called up some people who I figured would be able to do recommendations quickly, and I applied. It was the only school I applied for graduate school, and luckily the school was kind of up and coming as well, kind of disorganized, but they admitted me, and I set foot in that classroom in Costa Rica on the first day, and I was with 12 other students from 8 other countries, and the master's degree that I studied was actually in peace education. And I think just being there and spending that year there was such a transformative experience for me. So I highly recommend University for Peace for anybody that's thinking about a one-year master's degree. AU, I think, also has some relationships with them as well as a school. So that was a pretty transformative moment for me.
Christine?
Well, I was a double major in music and psychology when I was an undergrad, and I was interested in how the brain processes music. So I was doing a lot of neuroscience in music and very mathematical, cognitive, a lot of number crunching, because music is essentially numbers when you boil it down. And I was interested in doing something more applied. So I was talking to a professor saying, I love psychology research, but I really miss that connection with people. I don't want to be in a lab all day. So he told me to check out Sesame Street. So he said Sesame Street does a lot of research. And so the book that actually got me into this field, I brought it with me. It's called G is for Growing. And it's a book of 30 years of research behind Sesame Street. And this book for me was a very transformative experience, just reading this book, because I realized how much research goes into something with so much reach. So I really wanted whatever I did to have a huge reach, and I don't think that it's hard to say that there has been anything as influential as Sesame Street when it comes to educational media. And once I started learning about the international reach that Sesame Workshop has in 25 different countries around the world, I got really into that. So my first job out of college was at Sesame Workshop, and I was working on digital media, and I was working on international projects. Then I went to graduate school, came back to Sesame Workshop. I've been at the Inter-American Development Bank for almost 2 years now, doing very related things. So we have Sesame Workshop projects in Latin America, as well as other educational technology projects. But yeah, this is the book that got me into educational technology.
Saji?
It's a difficult question to answer, but before that, thank you, Darren, for inviting me. It's always nice to come back home to AU, since I spent a lot of my years here. The reason I got into this field is very personal, like the other stories also. But I grew up in Sri Lanka, and during the war, I'm making a long story short here. I had to make a choice between killing someone who murdered my friend or leaving the person who killed my friend and taking a different path. It was a very bloody time, and having that personal experience, seeing the good side of human nature unfolding in front of me, and at the same time seeing the ugly side of human nature unfolding in front of me, I had to choose at a young age what path I need to follow. So that was the moment that showed kind of the turning point in my life, that I chose to look at the good side of human nature and more focus on that and capitalize on it. So that's why I'm in this field.
Great, thank you. Thanks, the three of you. I'd like to now hand it over to the groups. We're going to delve into our kind of first question of today's session. You guys can